Bruce Lee's secret. The California sun burned down on the makeshift ring in Bruce Lee's backyard where he and George Foreman met for a sparring session. Foreman, already a force of nature in boxing, watched the martial arts master with growing curiosity. He had defeated fighters with punches that felt like hammers, but here, in front of this man of modest height, he felt something different, a presence that went beyond brute strength. "Bruce, man, I train like an animal," Foreman said, wiping sweat from his brow. "I run for miles, lift weights, hit the sack until my hands bleed. But you move as if you weigh nothing. What's your secret?" Bruce smiled, his dark eyes shining with a quiet intensity. He approached a table where rested some unusual equipment, a thin jump rope, a pair of light dumbbells, an elastic band attached to a hook on the wall, and an open notebook. "George, training isn't about how much you can handle, it's about how you use what you have," he said, picking up the rope. "Look." In one fluid motion, he began to jump, his feet barely touching the ground. It was not the frenetic speed of a boxer, but a precise, almost hypnotic dance. Foreman frowned. "Is that all? Jump rope?" Bruce stopped, breathing calmly. "It's not just jumping rope. It's about control. Every jump is a decision. You can jump quickly, slowly, on one foot, with turns. The body learns to adapt. And when you master the basics, the rest comes naturally." Foreman crossed his arms, still skeptical. "But what about strength? I need strength to knock a guy out." Bruce picked up the light dumbbells and began making slow movements, almost in slow motion, as if he were pushing something invisible. "Strength isn't just about lifting weights, George. It's about how you apply it. A punch isn't just muscle, it's timing, angle, relaxation. If you tense too much, you lose speed. If you relax too much, you lose power." He stopped, extending his hand. "Touch my arm." Foreman hesitated, but pressed his fingers against Bruce's bicep. To his surprise, the muscle was hard as steel, but at the same time flexible, as if it were alive. "How do you do that?" "Isometric training," Bruce explained, picking up the elastic band. "I contract the muscle without movement. Hold here." He wrapped the band around Foreman's wrist and asked him to resist as he pulled. The boxer felt the tension build, but without any visible movement. This strengthens muscle fibers in a way that weightlifting does not. "And the best? You can do it anywhere." Foreman dropped the track, impressed. "And the rest? How do you move so fast?" Bruce pointed to the notebook. "Notes. Every day, I record what I did, how I felt, what I need to improve. It's not just repeating the same exercises, it's evolving. If I notice that I'm slow in a movement, I work on it until it feels natural. If a blow isn't sharp, I break it into parts and perfect every detail." Foreman looked around, taking it all in. Bruce's backyard didn't have the luxurious equipment of a boxing gym, but there, among the ropes, straps and notes, was something more valuable, a method. "So, you don't train until you drop?" Bruce laughed. "Training until you fall is wasting energy. The body needs rest to grow. I train with intelligence, not with suffering." He grabbed a pair of gloves and tossed them to Foreman. "Let's go. Show me a punch." Foreman, now with a new perspective, moved forward. But before he could strike, Bruce dodged with a lightness that made the air whistle. The boxer stopped, shaking his head. "Damn, Bruce. You make it look easy." "It's not easy," Bruce replied, adjusting his gloves. "It is necessary. And accuracy comes from smart practice, not exhaustion." Foreman left that day with more than a workout in his body. He learned a lesson that he would carry throughout his career: true mastery is not in how much you can handle, but in how you improve. And years later, when he himself became champion, he still remembered that backyard in Los Angeles, where a small man had taught him the secret of being big. The weight of the lesson. The years passed, and George Foreman did not forget Bruce Lee's words. Every punch he threw in the ring carried the memory of that dusty backyard, where he learned that brute strength was just part of the game. But life, like boxing, did not forgive those who believed too much in their own lessons. In 1974, in Zaire, Foreman faced Muhammad Ali for the heavyweight title. The world expected an easy victory, the undefeated champion, the monster who felled opponents with devastating blows. Ali, however, danced around him, teasing, dodging as if the ring were his stage. Foreman punched the air, exhausting himself, while Ali whispered, "Is that what you've got, George? Is that all?" It was then that Bruce's lesson came back with a vengeance. Foreman remembered the lightness of the master's movements, the economy of energy, the precision that transformed defense into attack. But it was too late. Ali cornered him, and in the 8th round, a perfect counterattack took down the giant. Foreman fell for the first time in his professional career. Defeat followed him like a shadow. He retired from boxing, bitter, convinced that the sport had betrayed him. He opened a restaurant, then another, and for a while, he pretended that the ring had never existed. But Bruce's lesson wouldn't leave him alone. True mastery is not how much you can handle, but how you improve. In 1987, at age 38, Foreman returned. Not as the furious fighter he once was, but as a different man, more patient, more strategic. He studied his opponents, improved his technique, and when he stepped into the ring against Michael Moorer in 1994, he was no longer the same. In the 10th round, a precise, calculated punch knocked the champion down. Foreman raised his arms, not like an invincible young man, but like a veteran who had finally understood what Bruce had tried to teach him decades before. Years later, already retired, Foreman received a letter. It was from Linda Lee Cadwell, Bruce's widow. Inside, an old photo, him and Bruce in the backyard, gloves raised, the smile of someone who knew the fight never ended outside the ring. Beside it, a handwritten note, to George, the student who became master. Foreman kept the photo on his desk. Sometimes, when he looked at her, he still felt the weight of the gloves, the hiss of the air as Bruce dodged his blows. But now he understood, greatness was not in never falling, but in rising up knowing that each defeat was just another step in the right direction. The last round. The years passed, and George Foreman reinvented himself. He left the ring behind, but not the philosophy that Bruce Lee had taught him. The fighter is not the one who never falls, but the one who gets up stronger each time. He became a businessman, a pastor, and even the poster boy for an electric grill, laughing at himself in commercials that showed him as an affable giant. But, beneath the easy smile, he still carried the weight of that photo on the table. One night, already in his 60s, he received an unexpected invitation. A documentary about Bruce Lee was being produced, and the directors wanted his participation. "We want to show the Bruce that few knew," they said. The man behind the myth. Foreman hesitated. "I had buried those memories for so long that I feared unearthing them." But something pulled him back, perhaps the debt he felt for never thanking Bruce while he was alive. On the film set, in front of the cameras, Foreman spoke for the first time about what he had really learned from the master. It wasn't just punches or techniques, but something deeper, the art of seeing beyond the obvious. Bruce had taught him that true strength was not in muscles, but in the ability to adapt, to transform pain into wisdom. "He showed me that a fighter is not made of victories, but of scars," he said, his voice breaking. "And I have more scars than medals." The documentary was a success, but the biggest impact was within him. When revisiting the past, Foreman realized that, for decades, he had carried a silent guilt, that of having been the student who had not known how to appreciate the teacher in time. So, he decided to do something he had never done before. He took a plane to Seattle and visited Bruce Lee's grave. There, in front of the simple tombstone, he put on a boxing glove, not that of a champion, but that of an apprentice who had finally understood his lesson. Years later, with his health fragile, Foreman reunited his family at his home in Texas. He showed them Bruce's photo, told them the stories he had never shared. And, for the first time, he cried in front of them. Not out of sadness, but out of relief. I spent my whole life trying to prove I was strong, he said. But the truth is that the strength was in admitting that I needed help. That I needed teachers. That I needed to fall to learn how to get up. That night, as the grandchildren slept and the house fell silent, Foreman took Bruce's photo and put it in a new frame. Next to it, he wrote by hand, "For the master who taught me how to fall. And for the students who will one day teach me how to fly." Then he turned off the lights and closed his eyes, knowing that this time there would be no more rounds. The fight, after all, had come to an end. And he was at peace. Foreman sat on the back porch, the wooden swing creaking softly under his weight. The night breeze carried the smell of damp earth and freshly cut grass, mixed with the sweet aroma of the hibiscus tea that his wife, Mary, had left by his side. He held the cup with both hands, as if to absorb the remaining heat. Inside, the house breathed in silence, only interrupted by the soft snoring of the youngest son on the couch and the rustling of the pages of a book that his granddaughter had left open on the coffee table. It was Mary who broke the silence, approaching slowly, her footsteps almost imperceptible. She had a crocheted blanket, which she draped over his shoulders before sitting next to him. "You've never talked so much in one night," she said, smiling. "I thought you'd need a megaphone to make you tell these stories." Foreman laughed, a low, husky sound, as if he hadn't used those muscles for years. "I didn't know they were there, stored away. I thought that if I talked about them, it would seem like weakness. As if admitting that someone taught me something was the same as saying that I wasn't good enough." Mary took his hand, her calloused fingers intertwined with his. "But you were good enough. You just weren't perfect. And that was never a problem, George. Only you thought it was." He looked toward the horizon, where the sky was beginning to lighten in shades of lavender and orange. "I spent decades trying to be the man Bruce saw in me. The invincible fighter, the champion who never fell. But the truth is, I fell so many times I lost count. And every time I got up, it was because someone was there to pull me up. Bruce, you, the boys, even that grumpy coach who cursed me in Russian when I missed a punch." He sighed. "I just didn't want them to see the scars." Mary shook his hand. "The scars are proof that you survived. And now they are part of the story you will tell your grandchildren. Not as an untouchable hero, but as a man who fought, made mistakes, learned and, in the end, understood that he didn't have to do everything alone." Inside the house, one of the grandchildren, little Jake, appeared at the glass door, rubbing his eyes. "Grandpa, why are you crying again?" Foreman wiped his face with the back of his hand, laughing. "Because I'm happy, champion. And sometimes we cry when we're happy." Jake wrinkled his nose, confused, but didn't insist. Instead, he climbed into his grandfather's lap, snuggling against his chest. "Will you teach me how to box too?" Foreman looked at Mary, who smiled and shrugged, as if to say it's up to you. He kissed the top of the boy's head, smelling apple shampoo and sleep. "I'll teach you how to fight, yes. But not just boxing. I'll teach you how to fall and get up. How to lose and try again. And, above all, I'll teach you that there's no shame in asking for help when we need it." Jake yawned, almost asleep again. "And when you grow up, you'll teach someone else. Because that's how we really become strong." Mary stood up, picking the boy up. "Come on, sleepyhead. Let Grandpa rest." Before entering, she turned to Foreman. "Tomorrow, after breakfast, we'll go to the barn. There's something there you need to see." The next morning, the sun was up when Foreman followed Mary into the old barn, its wooden boards creaking under his steps. The place smelled of hay and motor oil and memories stored in cardboard boxes. Mary stopped in front of a rusty metal trunk covered in a faded plaid blanket. "Open it," she said. Inside, Foreman found worn boxing gloves, yellowed newspaper clippings, medals he no longer remembered winning. And, at the bottom, a pair of small, pink gloves, with the name Freya embroidered in crooked letters. He picked them up, turning them over in his hands. I had forgotten about those. She wanted to be like you, Mary said softly. I remembered every fight you won, every interview you gave. I kept all of that because I knew that one day you would want to see it. Not to be proud of what you've done, but to remember who helped you get there. Foreman closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the gloves on his palm. Freya, her eldest daughter, had died at the age of 10, victim of an illness that doctors were unable to explain. He never talked about her. I never cried for her. The pain was a black hole he carried in his chest, so deep he thought if he looked at it he would be swallowed. But now, here, with the gloves on his hands and Mary at his side, the hole didn't seem so dark anymore. I didn't know how to be a father to her, he admitted, his voice breaking. I spent so much time fighting, training, trying to be the best, that I forgot to be present. And when she was gone, I thought I didn't deserve to miss her. As if the pain was a punishment for failing. Mary held his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. You didn't fail, George. You loved her the way you knew how. And she loved you the way she did. These gloves are proof. She pointed to the trunk. And all this here too. You don't have to be perfect to be remembered. You just have to be you. Foreman held the gloves to his chest, as if he could feel Freya's little heart beating through them. I wish I had told her that. That she didn't have to be strong all the time. That she could cry, she could ask for help. That I would be there. You can still tell, Mary whispered. She's listening. He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. Then he put the gloves back in the trunk and closed the lid carefully. Let's take this inside. I want to show the boys. The following days were of a different quietness. Not the heavy stillness of before, full of unsaid things, but a light calm, like that of a river that has finally found its course. Foreman began writing letters, to Bruce, to Freya, to his children, even to himself. They weren't long letters, but each one was a piece of truth that he finally allowed himself to say. One afternoon, while his grandchildren were playing in the yard, he called his oldest son, George Jr., over for a chat. They sat at the kitchen table, where Mary served ice-cold lemonade and gingerbread cookies. I know I wasn't the father you deserved, Foreman began, looking down at his hands. I spent more time in the ring than at home. More time trying to prove things to the world than trying to understand you. George Jr. was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed. I understood, Dad. Or at least I tried. You were always our hero. But sometimes I just wanted you to be ours. Not the champion. Just the dad. Foreman felt the words like a punch to the gut. I'm sorry, son. I really am. George Jr. picked up a cookie, breaking it in half. Me too. For pushing you so hard. For thinking you had to be perfect. We just didn't know how to talk about it. Yeah, Foreman said, chuckling softly. I don't think we ever learned. But we can start now. They talked for hours. About the fights, about the silences, about the times George Jr. tried to be like his father and the times he tried to be the opposite. In the end, Foreman realized he didn't need a grand speech or a perfect apology. I just needed to be there, listening. When night fell, Foreman went to the room where he kept Bruce's photo. The new frame glowed in the soft light of the lamp, and the words he had written seemed to take on a life of their own, for the master who taught me to fall. And for the students who will one day teach me to fly. He smiled. It wasn't the end of a fight. It was the beginning of something new. Something that didn't require clenched fists or tense muscles, but an open heart. And for the first time in a long time, he felt light. As if I could finally fly.